So you need to alternate a VI and an FR schedule for the same behavior, and you want to offer an SD to identify the schedule that's in effect. Which schedule will be most appropriate? A tandem or multiple schedule of reinforcement. B, a multiple schedule of reinforcement. C, a mixed or tandem schedule of reinforcement. Or D, a tandem schedule of reinforcement. So B is the correct answer here, a multiple schedule of reinforcement. You need to alternate a VI and an FR schedule. So what immediately we can say what this question is asking us is there's two different schedules that we need to alternate. And we want to give an SD. And I know this D is not as pretty as it should be. It should have been tiny D, but here we are. We need an SD to identify the schedule that's in effect. So which schedule is going to be most appropriate? So we need two or more alternating and an SD in effect. So two or more alternating is, and if there's no other information about them being in the same order, about them meeting those three other criteria of always being the same behavior and being for, or always being, potentially being for different behaviors and always being in the same order, which would make it either chained or tandem. We know that this is either going to be multiple or mixed. And then because we have an SD or we need an SD, then this is going to be multiple. So we know that if they didn't give the criteria of having the schedules be for different behaviors and having them be sequential and always in the same order, then we know that it's not chained or tandem. So it's got to be mixed or multiple. And then if we have an SD, then that makes it multiple. So this one was tough because it gives these like mixed ones where it's like a tandem or a multiple, a mixed or a tandem. But the reality is if the definition says that it doesn't have the outline of what chained or tandem is, then there's only two that it can be. And if there's not an SD, or if there, in this case, there is an SD, then there's only one it can be. So it's really just process of elimination. But again, it's that memorization. So for mixed and multiple, for both of these, we have that alliteration of them being the same letter. Now, we don't get that with chained and tandem, even though they're virtually the same with the exception of not having an SD. But the way that this always made sense, and I know I give this in the pre-recorded lecture, but I'll give it to you again, which is the way that it always made sense for me, is that when I think of multiple, I think of multiple ingredients laid out on a counter like they do in those cooking shows where they have like little bowls with all the ingredients. So I can see what ingredient I'm supposed to put in next. So in that way, it's like I can see the schedule that is next. And then I think of a chain as clean, right? If a chain's on the ground and it's all mixed up in a nasty pile, if you pull it straight, it immediately becomes a chain again. Like it's pretty hard to knot up a chain. And so again, it's like very easy to see which one's in which order, which essentially is what makes me think of a chain schedule of reinforcement always in the same order and multiple things connected. So multiple schedules connected. And then when I think of mixed, I imagine it's just like with malt where we have all these tiny bowls, but in mixed, we just dumped everything all together. So it's still that same breakdown of what the schedule type is, but now I can't tell which one's in effect. And if I can't tell, then it's not an SD present, and then that's multiple. And then with the difference between tandem and chained, I think of tandem. I always give the example of sometimes you'll see people like riding down the interstate here, and they just have like, two cars tied together in a very precarious way. Like technically, that they're in tandem because they have one vehicle attached to another, but it's like via a rope and it's just a big messy knot. And I think of tandem as like a big messy knot. There are multiple things in there, but I can't tell which is which because unlike a chain, which is in like a nice, pretty order, a tandem is just like ropes tied together. So if that's helpful, use it. If it's not, feel free to disregard it. This is me asking for reinforcement. Well, potential reinforcement.